Hi, this is David, and welcome to EV World News, where we talk about electric vehicles, green energy, and the stock markets. I'm here with our editor and founder, Bill Moore. How's it going, Bill?
I am doing well, thank you very much.
All right, let's start out with kind of getting into some of the articles we've got today. We've got some interesting things. One of the first things I wanted to bring up was we talk on the channel a lot about Mullen, and Mullen just this morning announced that their commercial vehicles now qualify for the $7,500 federal tax credit as of, let me see, as of 5 days ago. So, anyways, I mean, they just started selling their vehicles. Their first vehicles kept rolling off the line. And as I've said, I feel Mullen gets undeserved hate from the retail side of things because of these naked short sale attacks.
Yeah,
And the stock, everything I look at, it looks like, to me, it looks like they're doing a lot of things right. I do disagree with, they have too broad of a focus of vehicles, but I think in the commercial sector where they own all of these cheap assets, they just acquired this battery company. They've got acquired Electric Last Mile Solutions. They acquired Bollinger, and they're sort of rolling out Class One cargo vans and Class Three trucks, which is like a small moving truck as electric, and they're starting to deliver to customers. And this just
yeah.
started, so they're able to start getting some revenue, and I think they're doing things right. And I feel they've made some good moves, and I see that the institutional investors are rewarding them. Their stock has gone up, from 40 cents to 75 cents in the past week. And so finally they're starting to make some traction after nothing but negative news, even though their book value was kind of skewed. I want to go ahead and get into this discussion.
I
You,
should point out that I have no financial interests, nor does EV World financial interest in Bollinger. Now, I don't know about you, David, but I don't.
I don't. I don't. But I wouldn't. It was funny. I jumped into ProTrader Mike's live stream today to tell him the news about them getting the other, because I thought that was pretty big
Yeah.
deal for his
Well,
other
I would
stock.
suspect that probably that cargo van is based on the Bollinger. I interviewed the head of that company, oh God, years ago, just after they got rolled out. Because they debuted before Rivian did.
Hmm.
And that was sort of the first glimmer that there was some exciting stuff happening in the pickup market in the way of electric vehicles. So and with respect to the short sales, Elon has recently been complaining about the very same issue
Oh
against
yeah,
Tesla.
no,
Yeah.
it's a big issue in the market, and there's some things definitely going on there that aren't on the up and up. Bill, you wanted to talk today about California's big oil lawsuit.
Yeah, this is interesting. This is starting to get a lot of traction. And I only mention that, I tend to the stories I tend to focus on are the ones that get a lot of media coverage. And this one is starting to gain a lot of media coverage and traction. And basically what's happening here is California is one of the states, one of the largest oil producers in the country. And of course, they are the fifth largest economy in the world. And as Governor Newsom pointed out in his interview that was aired, I think it was done yesterday, and it's on YouTube now. He says that with the slowdown of the German economy, we are very rapidly approaching that California will be the fourth largest economy in the world. Um, and so what they're doing in California is basically they are telling the oil industry that you guys have been lying to us. You've been covering up, the facts about climate change, and this state is suffering from your deception. And so we're going to launch a lawsuit against you. And of course, the one article that I mentioned, the gentleman, they're talking, in the tens of billions of dollars, and it wouldn't surprise him if he saw $1 trillion lawsuit just from the state of California for the damage that the oil industry has done to the residents and the property values and the health of the people that live in California. Um, they're not the only one. There's a number of states that have also following suit. Now, where that goes, does it ultimately go to the Supreme Court? Does it become something in Congress? I would suspect that, the oil industry, of course, is going to put up a fierce defense of this. Their strategy appears to be we're not to blame. All of us are to blame, which it kind of is true because look, I've been around 70 years plus, and I happily used their product without giving second thought to what I'm pumping out my tailpipe. I am pleased to say that I personally, the only gasoline I use now, and it's very seldom, is in our hybrid that sits most of the time. My lawnmower is electric. My leaf blower is electric. My main car that I drive is electric. My bicycles are electric hybrid. I'm the other half of that hybrid. So I've just I don't even have a gas can anymore. Everybody used to have a gas can around. I don't even have gas cans around. I've just sworn I'm not going to use the. We're on the internet. I can say it. I won't use the damn product anymore as much as I.
That's
I
great.
do
That's
use
great.
I do use propane for my gas grill, so
Well,
I haven't
and we
quite
have
gotten
natural
using
gas
solar
heat.
there.
Well, we have natural gas heat here too.
And I have natural gas heat here. Um, and I've been thinking, that's one of those economic things you have to think about, is that how much of our savings do I take and put into converting it over to a electric heat pump?
Yeah,
We
I
actually did
have.
that in our previous house. We actually did convert to heat pump. And then we did have a small high efficiency gas backup furnace, but we've been there and done that once already. I just have to think about at what point does it make economic sense here. I don't expect. Look, I was let's see, 18 years, 19 years before I could afford to get an electric car. And the rest of that time, I drove hybrids or whatever was sitting in my driveway at the time. So I don't expect everybody to jump in overnight.
No,
But
I understand. I saw some article we didn't report on a couple days ago that was talking about somebody was trying to tell the government they needed to tell all the automakers to stop making SUVs and trucks and only make small electric cars.
yes,
And it's like the problem is then people won't buy them and they'll buy them from somebody else who will. And so this is the problem Lucid got into. They had this idea, well, we're going to make a great electric car, which they did, and then people aren't buying it. And now Lucid's changing over to SUV or changing over to a crossover, and which is good. They have enough money they can sustain, but it's an issue of
I,
they weren't
I
hitting
kind of
the right market.
I kind of wonder how much of that is coming from Saudi Arabia. You know,
You never know.
because there is speculation now that Elon is in early discussions as well as with Aragon in Turkey, who wants a factory. Apparently, the Saudis have been hinting that they want a factory too. Well, Lucid is already, getting apparently funding from them. Hyundai, I just learned today, Hyundai is looking to set up something in Saudi Arabia. Something tells me that the Saudis are starting to think beyond oil.
Oh, there's no question.
You
There's no
know,
question. Well, they know they need to diversify that. You can't be a one trick pony forever.
yeah,
And so I think they're all aware of that. And you see a lot of the investment you see in the green projects is coming from oil companies, and because they're the ones who have cash, and that goes a long ways, whether everybody likes to admit it or not.
yeah, yeah.
It does fund a lot of the green projects and a lot of the solar and wind projects, and a lot of them have diversified into those areas of energy because
And but then that also being said, they've also backtracked.
that's
So
true.
some of them have sold off those. They built those assets and they've sold them off too. So I think Exxon Mobil is the most recent one to do that.
I've been, in so many different businesses over the years that it's really hard to sometimes appreciate how much and how many deals you'll work on that just go nowhere. and it
Oh, I
really,
know.
it's just a lot of people who just work a regular job as an employee for years don't understand how much, business people go through of where they'll spend. I mean, I've had projects I've spent years on that never went anywhere.
Yeah, well, let
And
me let me tell you someday about Quick Bike.
yeah, well, there you go. I mean, that's
I
a
know.
good example. We won't try to get into that discussion today, but
Right. No, no. We'll do that. We'll do that another time.
you had a brilliant idea ahead of its time. Anyways, let's move on to, let's see.
Let's
Oh,
talk
we're
about
gonna go.
battery life.
Yeah, so this is kind of a interesting article that came out on the cool down. And this isn't really what I guess people are expecting. So one of the big arguments about electric vehicles and the batteries is that the batteries are going to go out, people aren't going to be able to use them. Well, the study took data from 15,000 vehicles of various makes and models, and now there are people are out there driving 100,000 plus miles a year in Teslas, particularly Uber drivers, people like that. They're getting real world data showing what can be done, and that most EVs driven 100,000 miles still have at least 90% range left on the batteries.
Yep.
And so what this is telling us, and I don't know, what they don't get into is then at 200,000 miles, are we at 81%? And then another
Right.
100,000 to 72%.
Right.
They get at that. So we don't know if it's going to diminish linearly or exponentially at some
No, you're
point.
right. It'll
Okay.
it'll take time.
Yeah. So we don't know that. But the thing this is telling us is that people aren't replacing their batteries
No.
as often, you know, as they think. One of my friends had to replace the batteries in his Model X, and he was over 100,000 miles, and Tesla did a warranty swap out for him. And
Good.
so we got a new set of batteries, got a Tesla Model X long range, and so that would have been a $22,000 replacement. But something that's also interesting to see, I don't know if Tesla makes a whole lot of money when they charge somebody $22,000 for one of those battery swaps, because those batteries, when they have a 100 kilowatt power pack, that's a lot of batteries, and that stuff goes for at least $1,800 per 10 kilowatts. So
Yeah,
those
it's
batteries
well, of
aren't
course that's
cheap.
coming down, but no, it's you know that they have to be. They obviously are making money. Whether the margins that they enjoyed early are still there, given the competition that's rapidly coming up behind them or not. But do they really pay $22,000 for that battery pack, or is their cost actually some fraction of that, and then the rest of it's
I'm sure
markup
it's a
still?
fraction because
Yeah.
Tesla's manufacturing those battery packs in Sparks, Nevada. So
Yes. Yeah.
and that's
Or
one
over in
unique thing too.
Shanghai.
You know, what's funny is we go through all this discussion about EV, and a lot of people don't even realize that Tesla is an American company.
Yeah.
They only think of Ford and Chevy and and Chrysler as being American car manufacturers, but Tesla is an American
Well,
company, and
depending
they
on how you
make the
look at
stuff
it,
here.
they are the most American car company that
Right.
there is. So
And it's really hard to fathom how that plays out. I got something that's kind of interesting news. I think people will like. My buddy Mark has a son who races Mazda Miatas.
oh, okay.
And anyways, but here we've got this story on the electric Mazda Miata MX-5. So for 2026, there's going to be a new Miata that's going to be all electric. And what's going to be kind of interesting about it, it's going to the gas powered version is about 160 horsepower. The electric one is predicted to probably be around 220. However, it may be a hybrid, or it may be electric. That
Yeah.
Mazda still hasn't quite made up their mind. They're just saying it's going to be one or the other, and it'll be a minimum of 220 to a max of about 240 horsepower. I just thought that was kind of an interesting piece.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what they do. Hopefully, they'll have a little bit better performance in that than they got out of their previous electric, which was a bust. They just didn't sell, sold virtually none of those. So what, the MX-7 or something like that?
Yeah. So I got another one here for us. This one, so all the EV haters should like this one. So this one's from the UK. Lithium
Yeah.
powerpack fires hit a new all-time high in the UK. And let's
One
see what we got.
one every 2 days, which is horrible.
Hmm,
I mean, what do you say? It's just terrible.
picture isn't loading for me, but that's okay.
Yeah,
Oh, here it is down here.
yeah,
Here's a picture here. So they've had 104 e-bike fires and 19 e-scooter incidents up to the end of August, surpassing the total of 116 last year.
yeah,
Now, the thing is, we discussed this before. There's a lot of cheaper battery technology on the market, and a lot of this is really cheap Chinese, um, bikes and scooters, and they're aware that there's issues here. This is being improved on, but that doesn't. But the thing is, too, for there to be more, that means there was more adoption as
yeah.
well. So greater adoption
You're
and
gonna have,
EV usage is growing exponentially, not linearly, and so you're just getting a lot of people who
yeah, yeah.
have them now, and
What's interesting in relationship to this, Polestar and Volvo are working towards implementing a blockchain system to trace the supply chain of the batteries that are going into their vehicles. And this was something I actually proposed to a large blockchain firm, that we would do something, that we should do something. We should do something similar to that with respect to the e-bikes and e-scooter batteries, so that we know not only that they have a UL underwriting, but that we also have a chain of custody of where those components for the batteries themselves and the chargers, because oftentimes it's the chargers, and sometimes what it is that the where this might be located within a bike shop, for example, the attendant, the tech in there forgets which battery gets charged into which charger, and he plugs in the wrong one, and the voltages and the currents aren't the same, and one or the other overheats and starts a fire, and of course that's got a cascading effect.
right,
So it's interesting to see that Volvo and Polestar, their sister company, are implementing a way to trace the supply chain of all those battery components, going clear back to the original cobalt and other minerals that go into those batteries. I think that's a trend we're going to see, and I've advocated that we do the same thing for these small e-bike and e-scooter batteries.
all right. Well, I got one more for us to talk about, and this one is kind of a personal issue for you. We're going to talk
Yes.
about the Fiat 500 range. So,
Yes.
you know,
So if you read the headline says, "I drive a popular EV, but one of its most important features seems worthless." Now, I own a Fiat 500e, a 2016 model, which, by the way, I paid only $10,000 for. Thank you very much, out of California. So I have personal experience with what happens with the range estimator on this vehicle. The vehicle does not always accurately reflect what range you have, and that depends obviously on the algorithm that's going into measuring all the various energy flows in and out of the battery. So whereas one day I might have a range of 110 miles when I wake up and unplug the car, and I get in the car and I drive at 10 miles and I'm down 20 miles instead. It does that. So it's at best it's a guess. The car, as is pointed out by some of the commentators in here, whatever the car is, the range estimator is giving you, You can't decide that, oh, I'm 110 miles. I can drive from here to Lincoln and back. No, you won't. I can tell you that. The other thing, though, that disturbed me was the fact that number one, the person that wrote this article did not drive the car.
Oh,
He's simply reporting on what he read in a Reddit forum about people who were having similar issues. So, yes, none of these cars sell. You hear the same complaint out of people at Teslas and things. None of the cars, the battery estimators, are dead accurate. It all depends on where you're driving, when you're driving, what you drove previously. You spent all my time driving around in Omaha, and my maximum speed limit, because it'll average that, is 22 miles an hour. Whereas suppose I drive on the interstate to go downtown and I'm driving 65 miles an hour, that completely throws off the algorithm. So then the next day when I plug the car in and get up, it says I only have 90 miles as opposed to 115.
uh,
It's just the way it works. But it just galls me that this person writing this thing implied that he was driving the car. It was his car. It was not his car. It was someone on the Reddit forum asking about what's going on with my car.
well, we've talked about this before. The more popular information is the stuff that is bad towards EVs. And you and I both see what's going on. Even if you discount the features of less pollution or less carbon and all that, ultimately they're cheaper to drive. The issue up to now has been, are the cars as cheap to build, and as cheap to sell? And that's gradually they're starting to achieve something close to price parity
So
with ice covered cars.
we're seeing articles now that are saying price parity will happen in 2026.
We're
Now,
definitely
I've
getting there.
seen earlier when I was doing this, I'd see comments about price parity coming in 2021. Well, in some respects, that's true because the average price of a new car, is over 44,000. It's like $44,005. No, I'm sorry,
Mhm.
take it back. $48,005. And you can get there's at least a half dozen EVs now that you can buy for less than that number. And some of them, and most of those are down in the 30, mid to high 30 range. And there's a couple even down in the sub 30 range. So we're getting there, but that the pace at which the cost of batteries is coming down and the efficiencies, the numbers of battery plants that are going in and things, we're going to see those costs come down. You know what? I like to point out, what was the price of the first flat screen TV?
It was like $5,000.
Now they're advertising, buy this 55-inch flat screen TV, OLD, whatever
Yeah.
format, best that there is, $500.
Yeah, actually, they were worse than that. I've had some of the original 50-inch TVs, and I think they were originally, whoever had bought them might have paid closer to 20 grand for them.
Yeah, yeah.
So I've had some experience over the years with that. Yes, there's no question that they got cheaper, and I think that's going to continue to be what we'll,
Yeah,
you know,
I
actively
yeah,
see.
I don't expect to see, there's gonna be, when my very first new car that I ever bought was a Mazda, and it cost me $5,000. A brand new Mazda sedan. I forget what it was whatever. I don't remember the number now, but this is like late 70s, five
Mhm.
grand.
Wow.
So, inflation.
Yes. No, I get it.
But we're not going to see
Anyway.
$5,000 cars. But there's a lot of pressure now that we're being seen where they're talking about $25,000 car. The comment you had before we went on the air about we need to stop making SUVs and pickup trucks and make smaller cars. I think that came out of Europe, and they're saying we need a cheaper car. And there's a lot of good benefits to that, except that here in supersized America, we tend to think that we got to have, the maximum amount of range and the maximum amount of space for the minimum amount of dollars.
Maybe Lada or Yugo can lead the way on those.
Hey, I actually know the guy that brought Yugo into the country, Bricklin. So, yeah,
Anyways,
that's an interesting story right there, Malcolm Bricklin.
anyways,
Um,
a good show today,
so yeah,
Bill.
so yeah, well, I think we're going to see a model. We're going to see a Model 2 Tesla. Whether it'll be 25 grand or not, that's yet to be seen. But there will be cars rolled out that will be more affordable.
I think it's interesting how much innovation comes out of Tesla in this field. They truly have led the way, and it's interesting because, like I've said before, Elon Musk is the world's richest man because he's done the most for humanity and he serves the most people, whether people like him or not, or whether they believe he's really doing it. For those reasons, he seems to be fairly benevolent, and he has a lot of things he seems to believe in that he thinks are because he's clearly not really doing things for himself, and I find that really quite
He's
unique
he's
and
an
refreshing.
interesting he's an interesting character.
He
I
sure is.
will
There's no
not I will
question.
not I will not argue that point.
No. Anyways, all right. Well, I'm going to